Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. St. Marie Goretti, pray for us in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. A friend of mine, a young woman, was driving in a car in the back seat. In the front seat were a pair of grandparents, elderly couple. The grandma had severe Alzheimer's. After about 20 seconds of driving, she'd forget where they were going. She'd say to the husband fearfully, well, where are we going? And the husband, oh, we're going wherever. And she, oh, okay. 20 seconds would pass and she'd forget again. Where are we going? And the husband would kindly answer her. And this went on for about a half-hour car ride. And my friend in the back seat, she said, I'm not proud to admit I felt my sanity slipping, and she felt I wanted to get out of the moving vehicle. It was just crazy watching this happen. But she said every time the woman would forget where they're going, the husband would answer her as if it were the first time she asked, because he didn't want her to realize her mind was failing her. And as the years went on, her memory completely disappeared, and she had no notion who her husband was, though they had been married for more than 50 years. And one day he was taking care of her when she was ill, and she looked at him and she said, I don't know who you are, but you're the best. And you can hear estrogen in the room right now. This responsive, that's it. That's how I want to be loved. But people think, well, that's cute and all, but those are 70-year-old people that love, that romance isn't here today. I beg to differ. I found the following. It's an excerpt from the Journal of a Surgeon after he performed an operation on a young married woman. And the doctor said this. He said, I stand by the bed where a young woman lies. Her face is post-operative after his operation on her, and her mouth is twisted in palsy. It's clownish. A tiny twig of the facial nerve, the one to the muscles of her mouth, had been severed, and she will be thus from now on. To remove the tumor in her cheek, I had cut the little nerve. Her young husband is in the room. He stands on the opposite side of the bed, and together they seem to dwell in the evening lamplight, isolated from me in private. Who are they, I ask myself, he and this wry mouth I made, who gaze and touch each other so generously, greedily? The young woman speaks, will my mouth always be like this? Yes, I say it will, it's because the little nerve was cut, and she nods and is silent. But the young man smiles. He says, I like it, it's kind of cute. Unmindful, he bends to kiss her crooked mouth, and I'm so close I can see how he twists his own lips to accommodate hers, to show her that their kiss still works. I hold my breath and let the wonder in. Finally, a man who loves his woman more than his own convenience. And you hear this. Something in you, whether you're a man or a woman, says, yeah, that's it. That's how I want to love a woman one day. That's how I want to be loved by a man one day. But the problem is we know the goal. How many of us know the means there? How do we get there from here? How do we get to that marriage 50 years from now? It loves me stronger than death. I saw it in my other set of grandparents. My grandfather on the other side of my family passed away. I stood beside my grandma as we were burying him. And she said, Jason, you know I picked the color wood for your grandpa's casket. I know. And she said that was the color of his fishing boat, the kind of wood on his fishing boat, and I thought he'd like that. I'm like, wow, man, you loved the man for more than 70 years. Now he's not even alive, and you're still wanting to make him happy. This love that's stronger than death, I believe, is not something that happens to people as a result of fate or destiny or coincidence. It happens to you. I believe we have to build the foundation. The choices we make every day today are charting the path for where we're going to end up 50 years from now. So I want to lay a foundation of top 10 tips you can do to date your soulmate. Because face it, as a guy, you want intimacy with the girl, but you want to be close to God. You want the Lord and you want the lady. The girl wants to be close to God, and she also wants to be close to the guy, but a lot of times it feels like you got to pick between the two. I think today I want to lay out the plan where you can have intimacy with both. And so top 10 things that I've come up with. One, begin with a season of friendship. This often doesn't happen. The whole idea of just masculine friendship. You can be a friend to a girl without dating her is almost unknown nowadays. I was speaking at Catholic University of America up in DC a couple years ago. And, got a couple students here. Well, after hearing this, you'll probably wish you remained anonymous. But so I was at Catholic U, and there were about 400 college students there. This is probably 8 or 9 years ago. And I said, okay, I'm going to give you, I'd like you to give to me the name of the last movie that you saw that portrayed masculine friendship. A guy can be a friend to a girl without implying anything sexual. When was the last movie you watched that portrayed masculine friendship? 400 college students couldn't think of one movie. One guy put his hand up and he said, oh, I know, Finding Nemo. And I'm like, okay, you got me, okay, but they're fish, it doesn't count. It's a cartoon. I know we're in Disney World right now, but it doesn't count. But this whole concept, just be a friend, to understand the best beginning of a relationship is not to run into it, but to actually pull back from it. That if you want a kite to ascend, you pull back on the string. And the tension allows the opportunity to rise up. It's the same thing in relationships. If we run forward too fast, just straight into that relationship, we're actually weakening it. And so if you take a step back, as just to be friends for a while, you girls can get a chance as a woman to realize, okay, who is this guy who likes me apparently so much? Let's see, how does he treat his mom? Because if he's disrespectful to his mom, then that's what you get to look forward to one day. What do his ex-girlfriends think about him? What kind of guys does he hang out with? You have the time to find answers to these questions. As a man, you can ask yourself, why am I so drawn to this woman? Is it because she is so cute and so attractive? Or is it because I really admire her virtue? And it's not a matter of one or the other, but both are supposed to be there. And you're given this kind of opportunity to step back and say, does this person share my morality, or does this person tolerate my morality? Well, hey, if you don't want to have sex, I respect that if that's what you want to do. So they're waiting for you, but they're not waiting with you. But to take that time to build the season of friendship is giving you a solid foundation for the relationship. Point number 2, I would say, know your standards before you date the person. I got a couple quotes from young women when my wife and I were writing this book of girls who we found had kind of extraordinary backbones. And just listen to some of these girls. There's one girl from LA. She said, I don't want to mean to sound cocky, but I don't want to marry a guy unless he's worthy of my body. And by this, she didn't mean she had a perfect figure. She just knew the value of being made in the image and likeness of God. Another girl said, look, I don't hook up. I have morals. If you don't respect that, go home. All right. Another woman, this next one happens to be my favorite. She said, sure, attention from boys feels good, but knowing that I'm too good for half of them feels even better. I said, you go, girl. But they knew what they wanted beforehand. And I saw this at a girl at Louisiana State University. She came home on a date crying. And her mom said to her, she lived there in Louisiana, her mom said, well, what happened? She said, I went on a date with a guy, and as soon as we got in the car, all he started to do, make these little sick sexual jokes of he'd do what he wanted to do with me. And I told him, no, I practice chastity. And he said, that's fine, there's lots of other stuff we can do, meaning everything but intercourse. And she said, no, I don't think you understand. I respect my body, my future husband, myself. And he looked at her and he said, so you mean I'm not gonna get anything tonight? She said, no, you're not. So he said, okay. He turned the car around, drove her home, dumped her off, and he left. And she has never seen him again, and thank God. Because she could have given it to him for 6 months, always wondering, does he love me? Is he in it for the right reasons? She didn't play that game. Day number 1, love me for who I am, or you frankly do not deserve me. And it's not just about knowing the standards you expect somebody else will meet for you. It's knowing the standards that you should live up to because your future spouse deserves them of you. To focus more on that perhaps than anything. And so when it comes to, well, what do I need to focus on? Honestly, what I've seen is I think the greatest destroyer of vocations today is the vice of pornography, both amongst men and among women. Vocations, the priesthood, the married life, it's killing them. I don't know if you ever saw a movie, came out a couple of years ago, called 127 Hours. And this is a movie where a guy, it's a real life story, true life, and this guy is mountain biking and hiking by himself in Utah. He climbs down what's called a slot canyon, a narrow canyon, and an 800-pound boulder gets dislodged, and it falls down upon him, pinning, crushing his right arm against the cavern wall. And at first, obviously a lot of shock and pain, but eventually, okay, I just got to get out of here. I'll figure a way. And he's trying to create pulleys and banging on the rock. Nothing, 800 pounds, it's not budging. And he gets to despair of like, I'm gonna die here. I can't die. He pulls out a pocket knife. Well, maybe I need to cut off my arm. I'm not gonna do that. I'd rather die than go through that much pain. What do I do? Day 1 goes by. What do I do? Day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. He's in there for 127 hours. In real life, he lost 40 pounds because of dehydration. And at that point, he gave up. And he carved his own epitaph on the side of the wall, the day he was born, the day he would die. Filmed a little video of himself saying goodbye to his family, and he starts to hallucinate in and out of consciousness. And while this is happening, he has a vision, a premonition of a boy no more than 3 years old looking at him. And he said, "Oh, that's my boy. That's my son." And he wasn't married. He didn't even have a girlfriend, but he knew that that was his boy one day. And he knew, if I don't get out of this, that my boy will never be. And he said, that's it, game on. Makes a tourniquet, ties it in his arm, takes out the pocket knife, actually cuts off his arm using the torque of the boulder, snaps his radius and his ulna, bandages it up, hobbles out of the cave, where eventually a Utah Highway State Patrol helicopter rescued him. And as the credits of the movie are rolling, you see not the actor, you see the real man sitting there on his couch with his wife he met a few years later, and the little boy they had as their first child sitting between them. And the fact, how did he do that? How did he go through so much pain? For love. They say a knight cannot be brave unless he has love. His love gives him his courage. And as a man, we want to look like a knight, but we don't want to bleed like one. And I think pornography for many guys, that addiction, that habit, is like that boulder literally trapping you there. And I'm saying your vocation is at stake. The very lives of your children are at stake. I am not being over dramatic in this. I know several couples that had a beautiful relationship. They loved God, they prayed together, but couldn't get over the porn thing. And they never got married, and neither has children today. And they're living different lives. And it's like, man, they should have boys and girls running around on a playground right now. But because he couldn't break away from this vice, the family never was. And so to take things so seriously, but if we're motivated by love, I think we can overcome anything on earth. But we have to know the standards that we should live up to if we hope to have the vocation that God is calling us to. Point number 3, make commitment clear. So often I ask girls, hey, you dating anyone? Well, kinda. Like, what do you mean? Well, it's complicated. Okay, well, let's talk. Well, you see, we're not a boyfriend and girlfriend, but we did go on a date, but we're not dating. So we are seeing each other, so I guess we're a thing. A thing? What is that? A thing grows out of the side of your foot, okay? Like, that's a bunion, a wart, like that's a thing. Don't be a thing. And what happens is this whole problem is caused because guys, we just don't talk. We don't. Girls have these things that they do in their dorm. At 1 in the morning, 2, and they have these conversations where maybe 5 or 6 of them get together and they analyze all their potential budding relationships, okay? How many of you are guilty of this? Young women in the audience, let's see. Okay, every female. Now guys, here's the down low on what happens in these meetings. They sit around in a little circle, and they got the little mocha frappuccinos going on, and they sit on the floor, and they start talking. Well, are you and Ryan a thing? Or what's going on there? Well, we did this, but he said that, and I didn't know if he meant this, then he meant that. Well, maybe he meant that about her, not you. I don't know. Let's outline the sentence. Maybe the verb was modifying the prepositional phrase, and he meant that about you, not her. And I'm telling you, they're going nuts over there. What's the guy doing over in his dorm? Angry Birds. Boom, 3 stars, unlock the new level. And she's tearing her hair out. And this whole problem is caused because she's not playing Angry Birds too. No, that's not the cause of the problem. The root is that we don't sometimes know we're supposed to talk. I mean, frankly, they've studied this, and they found that adult women speak about 20,000 words a day. An adult man speaks about 7,000 words a day, which means at about lunchtime, most of us have met our quota for the day. And so if you ask a guy, well, how was that big test you had? Good. Well, how was that big meeting you had with the professor determining your major? Fine. Okay, well, let me tell you about my day. She still has 19,000 words to go. It's like sipping out of a fire hydrant. But they've said that this phenomenon can be detected starting at the age of 2 or 3 years old, that women will speak that time as many words. You can watch this in a sandbox. You got little girls in a sandbox. Well, Sally said to Jessica, that Jessica, da, 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 da. Look at the boys. They got trucks, man, boom. Boom, boom. And conversations don't really change after you get to college. I mean, it's pretty much the same level. And not making this up, National Geographic studied the unborn male and female embryos. Guess what happens to the unborn female embryo at about 8 weeks of gestation? The mouth begins to go. Unborn boy, nothing going on. She's just getting ready though. It's built into us. And the problem is, nobody tells us guys what to do. It's like, hey, you gotta be clear with your commitment, explain what you're feeling, what you're doing. Nobody tells us that. All they tell us, hey, yo, you be a gentleman, all right? You over there? Gentleman. All right, you got it, bud. Go ask a guy what it means to be a gentleman. Hey, what does it mean to be a gentleman? He'll be like, yeah, like if there's a door, you open the door for the girl. All right, it's great, good. Now what else? Well, if there's another door, I know that door also, okay, let's stretch it a little bit. We need specifics. Generalities are useless for us. Get specific. So I say, look, okay, you initiate, you ask her out, take her on a date, pick the restaurant. Don't, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? Put effort into it. And then, and I'm not saying this because I've perfected being a gentleman. I'm not like the Ryan Gosling of Catholicism or something. But the fact is that, but I picked these stuff up from other guys along the way that when you go on the date, you plan the restaurant, show her you put some thought into it. When you get to the restaurant, pick her seat for her. Not because I'm a man, I'll tell you where to sit, but if it's a beautiful view, you give her the beautiful view. If there's no view, then the man should take the seat that's facing the wall so she knows during dinner your attention is on her, not upon the cute little hostess or ESPN on the TV. It makes her feel honored. Now, when guys and girls, you know, girls get excited about this, but when guys hear this, they're like, oh, that's good. Oh, yeah. It's because we're literally starving for someone just to be specific with us. And so to be specific, not just initiate, but like make sure to have that conversation at the outset, throw on what you're feeling, the direction you think the relationship going, where she stands in this whole thing, and it makes her feel safe, understood, and cherished. And it's an important element that may not even be important to us. I mean, the first girl I dated back in junior high, she actually broke up with me because I forgot I was dating her. It was like, oh, I know it was like high maintenance, you know, but there's this pressure, but just to understand what a big role communication plays in her mind. Fourth point, meet the parents. Don't hide. You got to meet, and you think, well, what if we did? And my dad doesn't like him that much. What do we do? I knew of a couple, I read about them in a book, seniors in high school, deeply in love, and they had a real old school romance. They would handwrite all their love letters back and forth. They weren't just texting each other all the time. Real old school romance. And they were a good couple, you know, studying the Bible and loving Jesus and all that. And they're hanging out at the girl's house. And the girl's dad comes over and asks the young guy, would you go for a car ride with me? Yeah, sure, they get in the car. Dad said, what is this I feel about you having such strong feelings for my daughter? And he said, oh, dude, your daughter's like the most amazing woman on the planet. And I just can see myself marrying her one day, and she's amazing. And the dad said, look, no argument there. I think she is the most amazing girl on earth. But I'd really rather she focus on academics and getting ready for college than in being in some big teenage emotional relationship. So if you guys could just kind of scale it back, just be friends, really appreciate that. Guy's heartbroken, but he saw the wisdom of what the dad was saying, so he met with the girl. They said, okay, well, maybe we should be friends. And they're like, well, okay, we'll just be friends. And so they did that, but they couldn't. Feelings were so strong. They started dating each other secretly. And the guy took the initiative. He said, look, to the girl, I can't do this to your dad anymore. I respect your dad, and I really actually love the guy. I look up to him a lot. And if he found out that I was lying to him, it would kill him. It would kill me. I can't do that to him. But before they could tell him the truth, he caught them in a lie. And the whole thing was just destroyed. Both crying, big mess. And he said to the dad, look, I can't just be friends with her. It's either got to be everything or nothing. And if I can't have everything, then we just need to take a clean break until you say so. And said, if that's your decision, it's your decision. And so the guy asked the girl to give back to him all the love letters they'd ever exchanged. This is more than 100 pages of them. And he took them, said goodbye, and they never got to say goodbye to each other as they left for college. 2 long years went by where this guy stuck by his word to honor the father's wishes. And then one day, the guy's in the college dorm and his telephone rings and it's the girl's dad. And the dad said, hi, son, do you remember me? And the kid's like, yeah, I remember you. And dad said, I will never forget the mark you left on my family. You had so much integrity, character, and grit to stick by your word when it cost you so much. Yeah, it took a lot of guts, and I honor that. and I'd be honored to have a son like you in our family one day. So if you choose to court my daughter towards marriage, I'm sure she'd be more than happy. And he's thrilled, calls her up, they start dating. They dated for about 1.5 years, and then on a cold Christmas morning, he had a little surprise to give her under the tree. And he gave her this little box, and the family knew it was gonna happen, and she opens it up, and it's a red tag for a maple tree at the nursery. And she's like, wow, honey, thanks for the tree. I really appreciate the tree. He's like, yeah, I thought you'd like a tree. Dad said, why don't you go plant the tree? And what had happened is the night that he left her a few years earlier, he came back to her house. In the middle of the night, he dug a hole in her front lawn, burying in there a shoebox filled with all the love letters that he had ever written, and he buried it. And he looked up at her house in the night, and he said, God, you know what she means to me. You know how much I want to be with her, but God, if there's a better man on earth for her, then I want him for her because I want what's best for her, but I hope I'm that man. And God, if you bring me back, I'd be honored, but I leave these things in your hands. And he left. So that morning, he took a shovel and he said, why don't we go plant the tree? And she said, well, it's freezing outside. I don't want to plant the tree. The dad's like, no, go plant the tree. And she's like, no, it's cold. He said, let's plant the tree. She's like, okay. Plant the tree with a control freak. Okay, so out in the front lawn, pulls out the shovel. He said, yeah, I think that'd be a pretty good place to plant our tree. Starts digging. He hits the box, opens up the lid, drops on one knee to get it, and hands her the last letter he ever wrote, which she never saw, which was his marriage proposal to her. And that day, on bended knee, he asked her to be his beloved bride. And today, they're married and raising a family together, which is proof that God honors those who honor him. So, now, obviously, it's a lot more fun to hear that story than to live it, to suffer for 2 years with that cross of obedience upon your shoulders. But the very core of the beauty of that romance was the cross, the suffering, the obedience. And so it's so key in love, whether you're 14 or 24, God has entrusted you to your family for a reason. And do not allow yourself to get disconnected from those who love you, family, friends, and God. You know you've got friends who, as soon as they get in this dead-end relationship, they just drift away from everybody. It's like you can't even get in touch with them anymore because they're so consumed by it. But what happens is, especially when the relationships turn physical and sexual, your brain, during sexual intimacy, releases a neurological chemical known as oxytocin. Women release this hormone during childbirth, breastfeeding, and sexual intimacy. Guys release oxytocin only during sexual intimacy because we don't breastfeed nearly as often. But what happens is, during the release of oxytocin, does several things to your brain. It impairs your critical thinking abilities. It causes a massive emotional bond. It causes you to look at the positive, not the negative, increases your trust of the other person. Think of this, childbirth. The woman's giving birth, but she is so bonded to the baby. She's bonded to her husband. She's bonded to the obstetrician. She's bonded to the nurses. This happens. I know doctors. They've been in grocery stores 3 years after delivering some woman's baby, and she sees the doctor, and she's like, oh, Dr. Jackson, I love you. And he's like, who is this woman? A stalker. But it's burned in her. That hormone bonded them. And during childbirth, she forgets how difficult and painful this is very quickly. I mean, during the labor of our first child, my wife, when she's giving birth, was saying to me, Jason, you did this. Never touch me again. And then afterwards, she's like, that was beautiful. I want to have more children. I'm like, whoa, how did that happen? Oxytocin. Breastfeeding. She's up 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock. But she forgets how hard that is. She's so bonded. She's looking only the positive of this beautiful baby. Sexual intimacy within marriage. She's bonded to the husband. She's close to him. She's not so critical. Yeah, she forgets he drools in his sleep and drinks out of the milk carton. It doesn't matter because she's close to him. It binds you and it blinds you. Blinds you and it binds you. But when you take this outside of marriage, it's pretty dangerous. Because you have a girl and a guy who feel so close together. They're emotionally married practically. They can't look at the negative because they're so focused on the positive, and they even trust each other perhaps more than they should. And this was in the Discover Scientific magazine. They did a study where they inhaled oxytocin up people's noses to do a test with them. And they found out it was a game of investment. And they whiffed some oxytocin up people's noses, and they found the people in the game who who had oxytocin in their brain were far more likely in this investment game just to give away all their money. If, oh yeah, you're a nice person, here's all my investment money. And they said the people with no oxytocin were much more reserved in making cautious judgments with their investments. And it said that many people are afraid of being betrayed, and that makes them cautious. Oxytocin may affect the negative extent of these evaluations, causing us to say, oh, this won't be too bad. And this is what happens. You meet these girls who are dead in relationships, and you try to talk to her, but she's like deaf. He's like, well, I know he has problems, but I can't break up with him. He smells good. I don't know what to do. And she stays put, and you just can't beat her through her head. And so what happens is when this blinding takes place, if we're not connected to those who truly love us, we can get into some pretty bad relationships. But not only to get them too physical, and this may sound quite strange from a Catholic speaker at a Catholic conference, do not over-spiritualize marriage. This is strange advice. Marriage is a sacrament. We could go into all the theology of it, and it's beautiful and it's valid, but it's also human as well. And you cannot replace authentic discernment with mere spiritual feelings. A novena is no substitute for authentic spiritual discernment. Well, we did 9 days, we looked for a sign, now we're gonna go. No, you need to be surrounded by your spiritual advisor, brothers and sisters in Christ who are gonna hold you accountable, your mother, your father. This is the accountability net that you need. Because it's been sad for me, graduating from college, I had lots of friends going to mass every day, engaged in an adoration chapel, praying together. Marriages lasting a couple months and divorced. And as a young guy getting out of college, I'm like, how did that happen, man? They prayed a lot, and they went to retreats, and they did this, but they focused so much on the spiritual element, they forgot. We don't really know how to communicate. We don't agree on finances. I have family issues I never healed. She's got issues there that never got sorted out. And so to make sure you're looking at things, not only from a spiritual perspective, that's up in heaven, but also one that's grounded here down upon earth. And if we're doing this, then we've got extra eyes on us. Reader's Digest said the best indicator of the health of a relationship is what the girl's female friends think about the guy, because they have no ulterior motive. They see what's going on if her personality changes. A mother, when I was in the Philippines, asked me, she said, for my daughter, can you tell me? She said, can you just tell me in one sentence how a girl can know if a boy really loves her? I'm like, one sense. Oh, here you go. The closer she gets to him, the more she becomes herself. The opposite is not love. The closer you get to him, I don't even know who I am anymore. It's the same with God. The closer we get to him, the more we become ourselves. Sainthood is the full bloom of the human personality. It's not about conforming us to a mold. You know when you're getting away from God, when you're like, this is not me. It's not who I want to be. It's not who I was. It's not who I want to be in the future. But healthy relationships will bring you closer to everybody who loves you, family, friends, and God.